Good morning YouTube, my name is Amnesia, and for this video we are going to be discussing about the series known as Amnesia, which is part of the Crunchyroll Reviews series, and it is a 12 episode series which was done by the studio known as Brian's Base, which also did Bros Conflict. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about something here that happened. I do a series on my blog where I give a reaction to things that happen in the series, I don't care if it's Bros Conflict, I don't care if it's the one we're doing now, Amnesia, I don't care if it's Cardcaptor Sakura, I don't care if we do Gundam Wing. Okay? Now, when I do the reactions, it's always the first thing that comes to my mind after my processes. So, we find out that one of the characters, who is the Joker root, his name is Yuko, he has multiple personalities. Now, they used to call that multiple personality disorder. Okay? Used to. Now, they call it dissociative identity disorder, or basically DID. Okay? The character has a struggle where he wants the heroine, who has no name, I call her Amy in the blog, he wants the character to live, but there's another half of him that wants the character to die. And he struggles with it virtually, it almost feels like every 5 minutes. You almost could set your watch to how many times he switched. The thing is, usually when he did, he was always carrying a weapon. Or he would, while he's still in his good state, call the heroine or text her to come meet him, and then when she gets there, his evil side shows up with a weapon and he's ready to off her. There's a reason that he has to do that, though, he feels. Okay. So, because of this, and he gets like the second half of episode 10 on all of episode 11 and most of 12. Because of this, and because of the way the character was acting, I tend to, when I look at a character that I don't like, I tend to bash that character openly. Well, I made one very critical mistake when I did that. And I can apologize for it to the high heavens, but I can also say that I will endeavor never to make this mistake again. I, in turn, during one of the posts, ended up calling Yuko DID boy. I shouldn't have done that. I know that. But it was a snap reaction, and if you saw the scene in which I called him that, I'm not saying it's forgivable, because it's not, or even excusable. He had a knife. He was clearly trying to kill her. Okay? The building that they were in the room they were in was locked. There was a stage, and there was a door, but the doors were locked behind him. The only way she could get to the door is if she got the key ring. He had the key ring. Well, in order to get to the key ring, she would virtually have to be killed by this guy, who knew what he was doing to a certain degree, because he was clearly telling her at times, don't come near me because my other half is going to come try to kill you. That's what he was telling her consistently. It wasn't like it was just a one-time thing and I just went, oh, he's an evil prick. No. It was an internal battle that he was facing and he was fighting. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, now how do I react to this? And unfortunately, the only way I could was the way I did. So, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking people to rightfully understand it. All I can say is, I will not make that mistake again, considering also that I also worked at a place for 8 years where people have physical and mental disabilities. And believe me, I was around some that were pretty bad off. And we're not talking like multiple personalities or anything like that, but we're talking some pretty interesting ones. We're talking like epileptic disorders, people that just got physically violent at times at the drop of a hat. We were talking all sorts of different things. Okay? I've seen it. I know all about them. And I will endeavor in the future to, if I see a situation where I think I could make that mistake again, I will try my best to curb it or to not comment on it as strongly as I did. Okay? Now I spent the first 5 minutes discussing that situation, and believe me, I'm not making light of it because I know I fucked up. I know I did. Let's talk about the actual show. So, what is Amnesia? Well, in this case we are talking, and if you kind of got the opening monologue, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about a visual novel ultimate game, which was created originally, well, the original game anyway, in August of 2011, developed by Idea Factory. The anime was created January 7th, 2013, and it was a Studio Brian's base who was behind Brothers Conflict. Now, our story revolves around a girl who has no name. Why? She doesn't know it. Why doesn't she know her name? Well, a spirit named Orion one day was messing about and accidentally bumped into her. When he did this, he caused a problem where her memories from August the 4th, the day this show starts, to before are completely wiped out. Completely. This causes her to not know much of anything. Where she worked, where she went to school, who her friends were, just things in general. So she has to start to try and piece together her life again. What did she do? Who was she friends with? When did she make certain promises? And what you find is that there are antagonists and there are protagonists in this show that are kind of interesting. The antagonists start off as Rika and 3 girls who are part of a fan club for Iki. Iki, who is one of the roots in the game. Oh, I should mention this. I mentioned that Yuko is the Joker root. Well, all the characters in this game, all the main characters, which in this case are, not counting Orion and not counting Joker, we're looking at Shin, he's the heart root. Iki, who is voiced by Kisho Taniyama, by the way, he is the spade root. Your club root is Kent, and your diamond root is Toma. Okay? Those are your 4 roots. The Joker root is, of course, Yuko. Well, the way they did this show was kind of interesting. The first 2 episodes kind of give you an idea of the way things go. Like, the first episode will maybe set up a scenario, and the second one will end the scenario when the character just completely blacks out. Or something funky happens. From that point forward, we start dealing with roots. A root can be as long as 2.5 episodes, because Toma's and Yuko's were. They can be as short as 1, which was Kent's, or they can be 2 episodes, which were Shin and Iki's. And They all have very unique personalities, and they're all, in many respects, very likable characters. Okay, I wasn't the biggest fan of Yuko, obviously, because I made that boneheaded comment. But the 4 boys that she ends up associating with at the cafe that she worked at, called, and I'm going to try and do my best to pronounce this, Madeo no Hitsuji. Well, what happens is, every time she starts a route, basically, it starts on August 1st. It basically goes for like 2 or 3 days up to August 4th, and then reverts back to August 1st. Now, why is this? Well, something goes on that is explained later in the series, closer to the end, where because of something that happens with, it's explained to be Yuko, she's always sent back to the August 1st date, which makes things interesting because every time she writes in a diary that she has, it's always erased so she can never remember what she did in the previous route. Do you see how this works? Now, this sounds kind of ridiculous, but when you see the way they flesh out characters' personalities, they only give Kent 1 episode, and they do a very, very good job of fleshing out his personality. They do a very good job of Toma, they do a very good job of Shin. Interestingly enough, Shin and Toma are the 2 characters that Orion, who's the sprite who caused this whole mess, they're the 2 characters that Orion can't basically tolerate. But Iki and Kent, who I think I was also referred to as Ken, they are looked at a little bit more favorably, I guess is the way of putting it, which is interesting. And interestingly enough, Kent can actually see and hear Orion. So that was a very interesting development. Also, I should mention this. Waka. Waka is the guy who owns or manages the host bar. The butler maid cafe. His personality in every route changes. In Shin's route, he was actually a very happy-go-lucky person. Maybe overly happy. In, say, Iki's, he's very stern. I couldn't really get a read on him when it came to Kent's, but only because they really didn't have him around that much. Like, they don't really... If they gave him 2 episodes like they gave everybody else, I probably would get a better read on how he would have been, but yeah. Oh, I should mention this also about Yuko. He actually has the ability to pretty much predict things, casualties that are going to happen. But the reason, while the heroine, who I call Amy, by the way, is going through the time loops, so is Yuko. But Yuko's going through because he's essentially been shot, stabbed, electrocuted, burned, everything. He was killed virtually every time in some respects. But basically what was happening was they were ending up in the same time loop and either both dying or both living or something, so basically they had to get to one where one of them was the one living and the other one died. And that leads up to the infamous scene that I mentioned. Animation-wise, this is actually a very, very good show. But then again, it's Brian's base, who did Brothers Conflict. So I don't expect anything less. Okay? Funniest part about this, I mentioned this is Brian's base. Yeah. Dig this. The original run for the show was January 7th, 2013 to March 25th, 2013. And then months later came Brothers Conflict. So they must specialize in otomes. But it was actually a really well done story once you understood the way they were telling it. Like the first 2 episodes, you don't get it because you're trying to figure out what's going on, and they're not really giving you anything. Then you see Shin's route, then you see Yuki's route, then you see Ken's, then you see Tomo's, then you get the Jokers, and you go, gotcha. Here's my only beef with the show, and it's kind of like a beef I have with ultimates that are turned into animes, and even BLs that are turned into animes. If you're going to give us a ride, we expect a foregone conclusion. Because a lot of times, these games that you're turning into otomes, we're not able to play them unless we import them and then make our own route. Do you get what I'm saying? So, if you're going to give me 12 episodes, and you're going to have a character die at the end, or whatever, or you're not going to give me the foregone conclusion, so I have to buy the OVA, which you're not releasing here in America anyway. If you're going to do that, then why don't you just make it the 13th episode so we know, in fact, what the foregone conclusion was? Who did the lead character end up dating? Which route did the lead character end up going to? Because here's what's the funny part. At the end of the series, I'll go ahead and tell you this now, they put 5 cars in front of the heroine. Okay? And they do them in the order of Heart, Diamond, Void, or Joker. Then you go to Club, and then you go to Diamond. Essentially, the order of the routes, save for the Joker. Once you understand the way they are telling the story and telling the plot, it's actually a very well done show. Like I said, it takes a little bit to understand, but once you go through like the first 2 time loops, you go, okay, I got it. But you also get to see a side of each character's personality that you don't get to see in the first loop. Okay? And you know what's even funnier? Somebody made a comment in one of the episodes that said this is something resembling Het to Oni, because they did the whole time loop thing. Because somebody screwed up. Or somebody broke a clock and then they went through a time loop and da-da-da-da-da. But nonetheless, should you be watching this series? You're goddamn right you should. Do yourself a favor. Go check out Amnesia, and I think you'll enjoy it. Now, next week, real quick. Usually when we do these reviews, it's a 12-episode series, so the review is up on Tuesday. Next week, it will be either Friday or Saturday, definitively. The reason we are doing Pandora Hearts, which is 25 episodes long, is the first series of 3 that we are doing for the end of the year that are 25 episodes or more. We're doing that. There's a rewatch of Kuroko's Basketball coming up. That'll be for the blog. And you're going to get the review, finally, of Yuta no Prince-sama in December, as the Road to Seatome finally ends. When we do that one, we will be watching through the Christmas episode, which did not air on Crunchyroll. So, you have something to look forward to, and I will see you all. I will see you all hopefully next Friday for that review. Y'all take care now. Good night.